Hello, and welcome to Other Voices, a monthly conversation for activists. Other Voices is brought to you by Peninsula Peace and Justice Center. I'm your host, Paul George. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Peace and Justice Center, we're a community-based activist organization serving the San Francisco Peninsula and Silicon Valley since 1982. Noam Chomsky once described us as, quote, one of the most effective of the activist organizations, end quote. I don't really need to introduce our topic this evening. We've all been glued to various screens as we witness our own federal government invade and brutally occupy several states, none worse than in Minnesota, where 2 U.S. citizens have been murdered by federal agents. We're joined tonight by several activists from Minneapolis who have been involved in various ways with the resistance to this occupation. My hope is that we can learn from them some of the strategies we'll need here in California soon enough. From what I've read, the only reason ICE has not yet hit California as hard as it has Chicago and Minneapolis is because they simply do not have the facilities arranged yet for their concentration camps. They're working to change that as we speak. So I hope tonight can help us prepare for what is certainly coming our way. Welcome to Resistance 101. Normally, I would introduce our guests at this point and provide a little background on each of them, but I'm not going to do that tonight because they've asked to remain somewhat anonymous for security reasons, which they'll explain in a moment. So let's bring them on and say welcome to Muad'Dib, Andor, and Em. Welcome all of you, and thank you for joining us here tonight. So can someone explain the security concerns, why you wanted to go with pseudonyms?
I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
I think it's pretty clear that we are dealing with an occupation force, as you said, Paul, and you know, I know you from when I was in California. I'm a Californian, not a Minnesotan. I'd like people to know that that's part of my background. That's okay. Been here about 4 years. This is my 5th winter. They are tough. And I came for family reasons. But I've found an amazing community here that and a long history of activism. But as for operational security now, they're cracking down. I mean, we have a lawless federal administration that is doing things that none of us, however old you are, 50, 60, 20, 70, we've never seen in our lives. And as I often say, our grandparents or forebears fought against this. So they're just coming after people for whatever reason. And even if they don't put you in jail or brutalize you, they're going to make you spend resources to fight that. And there's limited resources. So that's why we're not blurring our voices, but and some of us are more public in different ways, but we are choosing to at least be blurred in the face. So it makes it a little bit harder for them to come after us here. And I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything here.
Yeah, Paul, I would add something if you don't mind.
Sure.
Just a few days ago, I got a random message on Signal. So you may have heard that we're using Signal to coordinate our community care efforts. And I got a random message on Signal, and all it said was, "We're coming for you." And I have no idea who that was. So we've had people infiltrating our Signal chats. So it's not just the feds that we're worried about. It's not just ICE out here. There are radical conservatives that are looking for us and looking for ways to expose us. And we don't know what they'll do with that information. In some ways, those actors are less predictable than even ICE is out here.
Okay, well, thank you for that. It is an unusual situation, but extreme times take extreme measures. I get the impression from watching the mainstream media that they're kind of taking Gregory Bovino being kicked out of Minneapolis and Tom Homan sent there as kind of a signal that things are backing off a little bit. But I suspect that's not really the case. What's the situation right now since this personnel change? That seems to be the only thing they've done is change the forward-facing person who's speaking to the media every day. What's it been like the last week since the death of Alex Preddy?
It's hard to keep track of time. So every day here feels like a month. But I think it was on Tuesday. It felt like, oh, are things lightening up? Is it getting better? Did a bunch of them leave? Maybe. And then yesterday and today it was back at it the same it always has been. We had two of our legal observers abducted yesterday morning. We've had numerous raids throughout the day yesterday and today. We're all um, we're all out there commuting is what we call it when we're driving around looking for where ICE is active, and it's still really scary. So I would say no, nothing's changed.
Yeah, that's what I suspected. When you say two of your legal observers were abducted, were they arrested, or what do you mean by that?
Um, well, a lot of people who are taken into custody aren't actually processed, so they never show up in the system. So if you want to call it an arrest, that would have to require actually paperwork and a traceable record, and that's not happening for a lot of us, which gets in the way of us trying to take legal avenues to, I don't know, to try to make things right after all this is over. They're not even giving us that. They'll abduct us, hold us for a time, and then release us later without any record.
I also
Yeah,
point out they've beaten people and left them in the park.
Yeah, without a coat.
In a Minnesota winter, they've fractured skulls. This is, harkening back to the 60s and times before. I mean, we haven't seen this kind of, Kent State is kind of what comes to people's mind when they were last murdering activists. Um, and so it's really pretty grim. I don't know if you can see my color through the blur, but I'm a brown person, and so I'm not in front of ICE as much because yes, there's a lot of racism clearly involved, and that's pretty grim. And so we're always wary. I want to say, I'm connected to the university, and people have been protesting a lot at hotels, making noise. There's an immense upswell here. I mean, some significant fraction of the population, and so they've been making noise. And last night you were asking, is it getting better? Well, for the first time, University of Minnesota Police Department went and arrested a bunch of people for making noise outside a hotel, noise ordinance or something. On the whole, they're supposed to have a separation ordinance between, say, the Minneapolis Police Department and ICE. They're not supposed to collaborate, but we haven't seen that they're defending us a whole lot. That's not happening.
Yeah, I was delivering groceries today and some pizzas, and the first thing I did was, hey, just want to check in. Is this area clear? So that I'm not at risk, both putting myself at risk and also this family that, the idea is that they don't open their door, but I had hot pizzas, it's 0 degrees outside. I want to make sure that they get the food. But I mean, there's a lot of safety considerations that we need to take into account right now. But I would not say that it is better. I would say that it's all smoke and mirrors. I would say that the tactic is that they are in the city and then they go out of the city and then they come back into the city, and like they're just strategizing and confusing us. They are putting information into the chats that is just setting people on wild goose chases. Not sure if you were aware that there were some people who infiltrated a lot of our chats in the last couple of days, and that was an issue. So there's definitely a lot of security concerns, and we just always have to expect that somebody is listening, somebody's watching, and hope that you have enough connections yourself in the community of people who can look out for you and the well-being of the people that we're trying to assist. But again, like, I'm also a person of color. I'm an Afro-Latina, and so I'm also carrying my passport, concerned about what could happen to me and the security that I need to do for myself and my family and my children, to make sure that we're all okay too.
yeah. I did read about the infiltration of your Signal chats. In fact, Kash Patel was bragging that they're going to investigate and prosecute. What they can prosecute on a Signal chat, I don't know, but very interesting. And I saw a report this morning that Tom Homan had put out had issued a directive to the ICE agents not to, quote unquote, engage with protesters. And I was going to ask you if you thought that just meant stop shooting them, but it sounds like it doesn't mean anything. They are continuing to engage from what you're telling me.
Well, Paul,
So,
what is a protester? Because what we're doing out here, we're not protesting, we're resisting an occupation.
That's true. That's
Freddie,
a very good.
When Freddie was not at a protest, he was doing his day-to-day life, and ICE happened to be there, and he responded to film and to try to protect people. There was no protesting happening. It was just normal everyday life.
Right. That was Tom Holman's word, but I take your point. That's a very good point. So I'd like to go through some of the elements of this resistance as I understand them. And one of the things I'd really like to first talk about is the general strike that happened just last Friday. I thought it was hugely successful, but it got knocked right out of the news by the events of the next day. And in fact, it was seeing some of the planning for the general strike that led me to last week set up this program. And I had gotten a message from Muad'Dib that he had just been to an organizing meeting for that general protest. And so I asked him if he'd come on and also help me find a couple other people. So Muad'Dib, thank you. I'm going to put you down as co-producer of this. But can I turn to you, since you were at at least one of those organizing meetings, Muad'Dib? How did the general strike come about? Was this started by the unions, or was it an activist suggestion? Or take us through how that evolved, because it was so hugely successful, and explain why it seemed so successful, because people sure didn't get reports in the media about it.
Well, I'd say a few things, and so I'm not wasn't even for that a core organizer. I went to a meeting where they're not the DSA; it's a different socialist organization. People had come in from Philly, and they were talking about, starting the. People have been talking about a general strike really since Trump was elected. How else do you disable and stop the economy and business as usual? That was the idea where it was coming from. And then Renee Good was killed and things have been building. And I think many of us don't think it's coincidental that Preddy was killed the very next day to knock things out of news. And because we were so victorious, I mean, there were tens of thousands of people in the streets of Minneapolis, and this is colder than normal. Well, at least during these global warming days, it's colder than it has been. I mean, it's in the single and negative digits right now. It'll, quote, warm up next week into the 20s. But and I went to the Target Center event because I had to do some teaching. So I went to that, and that was huge too. It was a huge indoor event. So it was huge. It was moving. It was successful in that there were unions involved, the unions that agreed to it, but it's going to take a lot more organizing and groundwork. And this is not something I'm a part of right now. I'm not in a union to get everybody to say, all right, we cannot continue this. I mean, I think they've gotten probably the message that killing people, American citizens that are decent, upright people that are white especially, isn't so good for the optics. But it's So that's where I come from on it. It was sort of like I saw it. I'm not really sure where it originated. Like many of these ideas, it's kind of snowballed. And I was at a meeting. People are like, "This is going to be important, and we're not just taking the day off. We're going to organize and go, learn things and march in the streets." And it was really great. And it would have gotten a lot of media the next day, but Pretty was killed the very next.
Yeah. I understand hundreds of businesses voluntarily closed.
That's right. There were lots of businesses that were closed and sometimes giving away free coffee, and people were like, "Where can I go to get any food?" And they were giving free coffee and food. I mean, people in Minneapolis are very supportive. This is a very I don't know if often people don't know, this state generally has the highest per capita voting percentage. And this district, which is Ilhan Omar's district, has the highest in the state. So this is a very intensely active city area. And, you know, that kind of electoral politics only goes so far, but, you know, it's what we have at the moment. And so we have caucuses actually coming up February 3rd, which is that's the beginning of the process. It has to do with endorsements and things like that. So yeah, people are quite supportive. I mean, that's not to say, you know, if you go out, just like in California, you go to the Central Valley, you will suddenly see a lot of, you know, anti-Newsom signs and all that. And here, it's not far that you have to go to see that. But the city is it has a strong solidarity movement. And I didn't actually know about the 1934 strike. And I, you know, urge people to look that up in the history of Minnesota. People often think of Minnesota nice. This city has led a lot. There was a general strike that shut the city down. People were killed. It was a lot that happened, but you know they won in the end. They won over the Union. But in fact, it inspired people in San Francisco and Toledo and other cities to get out and march. So I've been talking a lot. I'll stop there.
Well, and let's not forget George Floyd too, right? So
yeah. So moving on from the general strike, the more day-to-day stuff, kind of break it down into a few things. First one would be rapid response. And I think one of you used the term earlier, commuting. That's people driving. Explain how rapid response works. You have dispatchers, you have commuters, you have observers. Take us through it and tell us how this works.
Yeah, well, you have probably 18 different signal channels at your end. So that's a confusing part. Everybody starts off confused, and we cannot stress enough how important it is to be organizing now, to be in people's living rooms now, because you want to be vetting all the people that you're involved with. You need to see them face to face, because as things start to ramp up, everything's moving so fast. So when I first used a rapid response channel, I heard of ICE abducting some neighbors a couple blocks from my house, and I hopped on the wrong channel and got on a call, and I was all alone because I didn't understand it because I wasn't fully connected yet. But rapid response, think of it kind of like a pager system. An announcement goes out, and we're calling for response. Something's happening. We need people out there right now. Grab your whistle, throw on your coat, and go outside right now. So that's the rapid response channel. But we also have a live dispatcher call happening most days, where we have somebody on the call trying to help make sure that our whole area of the city has coverage, where we have people, commuters, we call them, driving around, just kind of keep an eye out for our neighbors, trying to protect each other, ready to make some noise if there's an incident. And then we have and M can speak to this. We have mutual aid channels. We have a ton of community hubs where people are just meeting each other for the first time, digitally at first, and then they're organizing. And, you know, the three of us met in a home together. We've met in a home together a few times now. And community is really happening. So there's many, many, many layers to this, hence the 18 different signal channels that you're in. It's really hard to keep track of, but rapid response was one of the first ones that started up, and then we realized, oh, we need more nuance here. We need a channel where people can talk about what's happening on the streets in real time. We need one that's the pager system, where we can just tell everybody to go right now.
So how many people are involved on any given day? How many commuters are there out there driving around looking for ICE, for example?
It really depends on the activity that's happening in the day. I was dispatching the other day, and I started with almost 20 people on the call who are out commuting in just my section of the city. And then things slowed down, and people started to drop off, and they had to go back to their jobs. You know, they had to go pick up their kids from school. It's all the normal everyday stuff still happening. I found out that you still have to do laundry in the middle of a resistance movement, and that's the worst. Nobody told me that. So everybody,
keep that in mind, folks. The revolution does not get you out of laundry day.
It really doesn't. It's terrible. I want a refund. but people will hop on and they'll jump in their cars and they'll get out on the street if stuff's happening. Hence why we have the rapid response channel to let people know when stuff's happening. And when stuff's not happening, we just have a handful, 4 or 5 across the area. And that's usually enough to keep an eye on things. But people are so ready to go. Everybody is ready to go. They're ready to grab their whistle, ready to hop in their car or go out on foot, even when it's -10 outside.
Yeah. Em and Moadib, you have anything you want to add about the rapid response system?
Yeah, so typically for the rapid response, it's usually like you're within 5 minutes of your area and you go immediately, and you're not writing things in there that are unnecessary because it's saved sacred space just for the most important details in that chat. You have your whistle, and there are different ways that you can use the whistle to indicate that ICE is present, ICE is here, things are happening. And then, we don't know what spin the information is going to be, presented in. So it's really important. And we saw this also with Preddy, that those witnesses are vital to telling what the story, it actually is. We are recording and telling history through our lens, and the media is not being accurate about what is actually happening.
Yeah, just think if Pam Bondi's statement about it, this sort of fanciful alternate universe had not had video footage against what was happening. Like, just think. So that's one of the important things. We thankfully have everybody has phones these days, which have pluses and minuses, but we can document and record in all situations. And that's one of the important things. And these are people, community members. Some may be undocumented, some are not, some are citizens, and they still take them down to the federal building. But they may be undocumented. They came for a better life, as many of our ancestors or parents did. And there were there's many issues here, but there were plenty of deportations under Biden and Obama. It wasn't this level of cruelty, this sort of just display of inhumanity, which is almost the point it's certainly what Stephen Miller wants, right? So it's really crazy that they can treat a major metro area of the US like this.
And why it's even more important for everyone to be connected with their community, because we save us, we have our back, because respectfully, it's us, it's the community. I don't necessarily feel the support from the government. And in fact, it is the federal government who is launching this attack against us. And so it's so important for you to know your neighbors, and then to know the greater community. Minneapolis is set up with South Minneapolis, North Minneapolis, because of the downtown. It kind of separates us. But everyone has their little pocket of people that they're close to. And I highly suggest that that is a strategy that you guys start sooner than later. Knock on doors, get to know each other, get real comfortable with being uncomfortable, because when you're in it, like it's really like, okay, you got my back. Okay, cool. Let's go.
Can I mention one thing?
Yeah.
About Signal, and like, why is some of your, I don't know if the viewers there, I remember PPJC is, sometimes older people were like, oh, yet another communication platform. Signal is not more special than WhatsApp or normal texting, but what it is an amazing company. They ask you for donations. They're not out there to sell your data. They keep little what's called meta information, so if they're ever subpoenaed, it doesn't get released, which has happened. So it's a company built around this from some of the better people from Silicon Valley. I encourage people to look it up. And it's all encrypted and secure. And that's why it's not owned by Facebook as WhatsApp is. That's why people tend to use it, and why our friend Hegseth used to use it as he did.
Quite effectively, didn't he?
Right. So the most important thing is connecting with your neighbors, however you do it. If you start just with a normal texting circle, start connecting with people locally, and build from there if you're going to use Signal or whatever later. But this is what we found to work here.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Let's move on to this idea of mutual aid. And I knew that this was a big part of the overall resistance, but I read just today in Mother Jones magazine that 17,000 families are being fed through the mutual aid. Talk to us about how the mutual aid system works and who's doing what in that, and to the degree you have any numbers, because I think one of the things that isn't coming across in the media is the incredible number of people who are doing these things that you folks are doing. It's not a small handful. It's a huge counter army almost.
Yeah.
Who wants to take on mutual aid and explain what you're doing there and how that got started?
Yeah, I can take that one. So, I want to first start with saying that cash is king. I know everybody wants to donate clothes, they want to donate groceries, everybody wants to feel like they're participating, but food and clothes do not pay the bills and don't pay rent. So at the end of the day, like, unless there's an eviction moratorium or something like that is enacted, God forbid you guys are terrorized the way that Minneapolis and Minnesota are being terrorized right now, people need to pay their rent and they need to pay their bills. Of course, the next layer is everybody needs food and they need supplies and that sort of thing. We have a robust system of food shelters.
Let's back up just a minute, just so people understand. They need food and supplies because they're afraid to go to the store. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they're just staying home.
Yes.
And they can't work.
And they can't work.
And they can't work.
And they can't work. So I just want to be clear that, like, food, people need food, but people need money as well. There are some grocery stores that are offering deliveries. There are a lot of people who are banding together, standing outside of restaurants, standing outside of grocery stores. A lot of places, their doors are locked and they are letting people in one by one. Everybody's taking a lot of caution right now. So much food has been donated that oftentimes we don't know where to take it. So then we put out a call and people, okay, I need diapers. Okay, you can go here. So we have an incredible spider web network of, hey, do you know anything? Do you know anything? There are so many organizers and it's so impressive. So the mutual aid piece is very robust. So I'm not sure how many food shelters and pantries and churches and community centers are around, but that's really teachers, schools, all of these places are collecting donations, even businesses, as many businesses that closed for the strike, just as many businesses are collecting, restaurants are holding food in their walk-ins. People have really identified what side they're on, and it's pretty incredible who's for the people.
No one's going to Bob Steve's Auto World, for example.
What was that?
It's a local gas station that was supporting ICE, and I'm pretty sure they have a pretty big boycott coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Supporting ICE in what way?
They were letting ICE stage in their lots.
Oh.
And it's a chain of a few of them. They were having them fuel up, and from what I read, it was their politics before too, were sort of lean that way. But it's not really a good look in Minneapolis at the moment. Now, ICE is not.
No,
right.
I wouldn't think so. Anything else to say about the mutual aid? It just sounds like.
Yeah, that's like the core of everything. You have to care for your people. So how do you care for them? People, we have midwives, we have medics, we have all types of professions on hand. Do you know a mechanic? Do I think Andor can speak to this. People have been having their doors kicked in. There's all sorts of need, and it's just an incredible chain of, do you know somebody? Yes, I know somebody. Okay, let's get them services. Let's get them groceries. Let's bring a little bit of joy. People are collecting toys and dropping them off. I want to be careful that we're not doing mutual aid because it makes us personally feel good. It's, what does the person need? What does the family need? It's not, oh, I have a can of green beans, this could help. No, let's be honest and realistic about, it's not enough to just show up in any way, right? Like, oh, well, they need food, they should be grateful, right? We also have to be like, meet people where they're at, and who are we donating to? Let's be realistic about the things that they want. Latino communities, they want spices, or they want, these types of food. Okay, then we have the Somali community. Okay, this is what they want. So just to take it a little bit more of like our ego and like how we feel good by donating or doing mutual aid, and making it more about the person.
Yeah, so I support all that Em said, and I would add a couple of things. So almost all of us know somebody affected, right? So in my kids' school right now, I'm raising money, and if you want the link, I can give it to you right now, for 3 families. One of them, the father was deported. The other 2 are they can't go out and work. They used to be a roofer or work in a hotel, and so they can't pay their rent. And so I'm raising money for them specifically. And the other thing I was going to say, I mentioned the doors. People should know. I mean, I don't remember the last time that in America you had some authority going door to door, basically looking for brown people to, and they don't, if they have any accent, they might pull them away. Like they've taken battering rams. Actually, the famous case, they took a battering ram. The guy was either a citizen or totally legal. They took him in his almost no clothes. They took him, I think, all the way to Whipple. And then they, I don't know what they did. They released him. So this is the kind of, it's not every door, it's not everywhere, but they have done that. They have done that in our city, gone door to door. So people are not that happy about people knocking on doors, which is one of the things that, if you're a Democratic electoral activist, that's what you do. And now people don't want to open doors even more than before. Right. So I don't know if Andor wants to speak to any of that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Andor actually about when we had a brief text chat yesterday to get this finally set up. Andor, you mentioned you're involved in a door repair project. And I can guess what that is, but explain.
Yeah, there was a home farther north from me here that their door had been busted in, and I used to be a carpenter, so I went up there to take pictures of the doors, and I'm texting all my carpenter friends, and I don't know, 8-10 different carpenter friends I'm trying to get a hold of, and all of a sudden I'm like, we need a group for this. Like, there's tons of carpenters out there. We just need a group. And one thing I need to stress to you guys as you're organizing is nobody's going to give you permission to do something. Nobody's going to approve your idea.
No one.
You see a need and you meet it. And I was like, oh, we need a group of carpenters. So I made a group. We got it added to the channels. The word started getting out. I'm not even really engaged in that anymore because I'm out commuting. I'm dispatching. I'm doing all sorts of other things. And there are some things that I shouldn't be involved in because ICE has led me back to my own home multiple times. ICE has been parked outside of my house multiple times. They know who I am. They know who my car is. I shouldn't be doing mutual aid. I probably shouldn't be doing door repair. If they know who I am, I could be putting people at risk. So part of this is you kind of have to figure out what your lane is, and you got to be smart.
Yeah, just to that point, if you are out commuting, you cannot be doing mutual aid with the same car. You must choose your lane because they know what the cars are. They are taking our license plate numbers, and just like Andor said, they followed them to their home. So you have to be aware of your surroundings.
not just followed me to my home, they led me to my home. I found them out in the city and I was observing them, and they took off and I followed at a distance. It's legal, safe observing from a distance. And I realized halfway they're taking me to my house because they
Wow.
had looked up my plate, and that's happened multiple times now. And it's happened to pretty much every commuter who's been out there on a regular basis. They're being led back to their own houses purely as intimidation.
Yeah,
Just they'll
clearly.
drive by your house and they'll point at your house out the window just to tell you, we know who you are.
Wow.
It's scary.
Indeed it is. So I'd like to bring our audience in here. We've got a lot of people online right now and lots of questions. There's two ways you can ask a question. What we prefer is you raise your hand, and you'll get a notice from our director that you can unmute yourself, and you can just ask your question directly to our guests. Or you can click on the Q&A box and type in a question, and I'll go through those and read them off to our guests. I do note that a couple of people have noted in the Q&A box that although Muad'Dib referred to their faces being blurred out, that they are not. That's going to happen before we put this up on YouTube. They were okay with being here with you folks on Zoom, but our recordings of all our webinars go up on YouTube, where quite frankly, they're seen by substantial numbers. Thousands of people watch our webinars. Their faces will be blurred there when it goes beyond here tonight. But thank you folks for making those comments and that concern. So I see a hand up. Kylie, I think Matthew Owen was the first one with a hand up. And if our director David can, okay, looks like unmuted. Matthew, what's your question? And welcome.
Well, pardon me. Well, just an observation that as far as mutual aid goes, Palo Alto has it going on. And I can attest why. Because when I run out of money, which I do every month almost, because I'm living on SSI until, I'm working again, at 70, it's pretty challenging. But yeah, when I run out of money, I head on down to Palo Alto. Why? A, there's a pantry there that can't be beat. It's amazing. Okay. B, they let me park. Okay, they let me park. They don't.
Do you have a question about Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Yes.
I hear it's cold up there. I
Yes.
also hear that it's very, very close to Canada. How close is it? Well, there is a piece of Minnesota you can't drive to for the rest of Minnesota called.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. Let's turn to Kylie with her hand up.
Hi, yeah, I sent my question in the chat, but I'm happy to ask it verbally. So I really appreciated what you were saying about people needing to be able to pay the bills, and cash is key. And I feel like that's really important. So I wanted to ask if you have any advice on getting that cash from the community to others in the community. And like, for example, I'm based on the West Coast, and we're working on setting up a bail fund. And so I also was just kind of curious how you would weigh doing that versus like prioritizing direct cash assistance work.
Thank you. Good question.
I'm just going to go ahead and advertise because I just made it before this meeting. So I've been working on the GoFundMe. So if you would like to contribute directly to families, it's bit.ly/MPLS-FAMS. I think that's what it is. FAMS. I'll check it right now. And there's 3 families that I'm raising funds for. And I'm going to keep people documented. If you contribute to that, even a few dollars, I'm going to keep it documented about where the money is going and how those families are doing in some anonymous way.
Let me just, before we'll get back to you in just a second, Em, just a reminder, we send out a follow-up email to everyone who registered for our webinars. And we will certainly be sending these links where you can donate to various aspects of what's going on up there. So if you didn't get that URL that Muad'Dib just read out, you'll be getting it in your email in a couple of days, along with some others. So sorry to cut you off, Em, but I wanted people to know that.
Yeah, for sure. I think to answer your question, I think it was Kylie. Everybody has their own lane, and there's going to be a lot of people who are raising money for families in many different ways. The way that I've seen it here, a lot of it's happening in the schools, a lot of it's happening immediately in the community, a lot of it's happening through businesses. Some businesses have taken on an incredible, not sure if you guys are familiar with Rectangle Pizza or Smitten Kitten, those two businesses off the top of my head, they did, buy a pizza, donate a pizza. Smitten Kitten has been receiving a lot of donations and sending that out. And then also we had Monarca and different organizations that are local. I'm sure you have a chapter as well that are raising money. We have a bail fund. So you basically need to pick your lane. Who's raising money for who? And there's going to be a lot of different efforts, right? Like we don't all need to do the same thing. I'm personally raising money in my personal network for families that I know, but then I'm also giving to a greater community fund as well. So, there's going to be multiple layers. If you can have some sort of list or some sort of hub where people can go, a lot of people have link trees to GoFundMe's for individual families. So there's no one way to do it, right? I think this goes back to Andor when they said, we don't need permission. You just got to do it and pick whatever lane, maybe this week you're focusing on an eviction moratorium. That's what I'm focusing on today. February 1st is coming. People need rent money. People need bill money. That's my heavy focus these next couple of days. So that the need changes often, right? Everybody wants to donate food in the beginning, but the thing is okay, then everybody gets food and then what, right? So then we got to shift the focus to something else.
Okay, good answer. We got David Kelly with his hand up. Let's bring David on. Unmute yourself, David. David, unmute yourself to ask your question. We can't do it.
So it's Kylie and I'm still unmuted. So I think it might be on the wrong person. Just so
I'm
you know.
unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, David.
I'm sorry. Can you talk a little bit about your interactions and communications with your mayor and other city officials, including your police chief?
Well, I'm going to say one thing. So I didn't vote for Jacob Fry, but he said some good things, but the Philadelphia police chief and mayor, I think, have been much more punchy in saying they're going to act, not just say things. So Brian O'Hara, the police chief, has said some things, but we would like probably more strong things done than just said.
No, definitely. I have been calling all of the representatives, and I've been asking them how they are being in action, how they're supporting their communities. There are some who are doing a better job than others. There are some who are choosing to save face rather than take action. And ultimately, again, we save us, and the community is doing all we can to support one another and fill in all of the needs as we can, because the government is not going to save us.
And speaking from out on the streets, I've never seen Minneapolis police protect us. It's just not happening. So they're saying pretty words, and there's people are all around the country like, oh, that's how a police chief should act. That's how a mayor should act. And like, yeah, where's the action? Because the only people protecting our neighbors right now are us. It's us. Nobody's coming to save us. It's individual people. So no, most of us in Minneapolis, we don't buy it. Like the mayor, police chief, we've been through this before. We go back to the George Floyd protests. We know who the police are. We know how they treat us. We know that they protect property and rich people. That's what they're about.
Yep.
And
Well,
in
it
fact,
seems like the message for tonight is we do have to do this ourselves.
we do.
Yeah.
I'll make one plug for Jason Chavez, is one of the city
Jason
council members.
Chavez.
And a few of the city council members that I know, they're actually, it's quite lefty, I would call it, quite progressive. He was at a rally actually right after Renega was killed. I think the next day that I was at, like out in the freezing cold, in the rain, speaking strongly. So if somebody like that could get into power, Brandon Johnson, amazing mayor, of Mamdani of New York. I think these folks are doing more. Johnson is in Chicago.
Yeah, Frey basically said, hey, there's only 600 cops to the 3,000 ICE agents. So it really sounds like, what do you want us to do? Well, I guess there's our answer. So we took that upon ourselves to do what we needed to do because no one's coming to save us.
With that message in mind, I did want to ask, your state legislature is not currently in session. I think they come back in mid-February or something. But at least what I can find, that there's one bill that's being worked on that would limit ICE access, would keep them out of hospitals, schools, and group homes. And another bill that's being worked on to require federal agents meet the same training requirements as local law enforcement, including first aid. Do you think anything will come out of the legislature? I know very little about Minnesota politics, but I've got your message. You're not depending on them, but we have our California legislature passed a no masking law some time ago. It's being challenged in the courts. And I see one of our questioners said that the LA police chief has announced that they won't enforce a no masks on ICE if it makes its way through the courts. Are we barking up the wrong tree waiting for legislatures to rein these guys in?
I can address one thing specifically because Minneapolis has already made it illegal for ICE to stage in Minneapolis parks. And today we drove, there's what 10 park, I don't know, like 4 blocks from my house here in the parking lot of Minneapolis Park here. They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care. Like whatever law you create, who's going to actually enforce that? MPD isn't enforcing that. So it doesn't really matter what legislation's passed if they're not actually going to adhere to it.
Right. That's an excellent point. There was just a court ruling yesterday, and the judge noted that ICE, in January of this year, has ignored on 96 occasions federal court orders.
Right.
96 occasions, just ignoring court orders in 1 month. As the judge noted,
that we're aware of.
The judge noted that ICE has probably violated court orders more times in January than other federal agencies have done throughout their entire existence.
I don't want to, we are all very clear. We're dealing with a lawless administration. At the same time, when they get orders handed to them, at times it will slow them down. They've turned the plane around in mid-flight and some things. So we have to, it's the system we have, and we actually have a decent legislature in Minnesota. At times it's just blue in both houses right now. Erin Murphy, our state Senate Majority Leader, is quite great. I wish she was going to become governor instead of Amy Klobuchar. She ran a few years ago. But
she's the one that behind the bill, those 2 bills that I just mentioned.
Okay, that's good to hear. I've seen her speak once. But we're just dealing with a lawless administration. And, as Trump's poll numbers fall, that's when he gets chastened and he, turns some things around. But I don't know. I think, as Em said, we are here. We're the only ones saving ourselves. We're used to, as Americans, a lawful government. We vote, they follow the law. Well, we're closer, Paul, now to the revolution or the Civil War, when we take things into our own hands.
Yes.
We've never seen this in our lives. And that's why people are out here It's, in the saying no, we have to protect ourselves and do these things. And we've become like the laser loons. You might see these pictures of loons with lasers coming out of their eyes. That's our state at the moment.
Well, for the final few moments here, let me ask the question: what's next? Where do we go from here? I know there are like daily protests at the Whipple building. Is that correct?
Protests all over, like as
Yeah,
yeah.
and there are, I think, currently 16 people facing some kind of federal charge. I don't think they've been formally indicted yet or anything, so we don't know if they're going to be felony or lesser charges. So legal aid is going to be part of ongoing strategies. And what do you see coming next?
I would love to talk about dreaming and imagination and vision for what the world can look like. I think that it's important for us to include creatives and to include dreamers and all the woo-woo people and all of those things in everything that we're doing. We can't only put out fires. We can't only do rapid response. We can't only look out for ICE cars. That's not sustainable. And this is something that is an ongoing thread and conversation that we have in our community living room meetings and whatever we're doing is what does everybody dream about? What do we want to go outside and see? What walkable cities do we want? How do we move away from capitalism? There's all these things that there's no one dream, there's no one vision, right? Everybody has their idea. And that's where we talk about, we don't have to have the same exact morals, values, or, some people are, very over here. Some people are very over there. That doesn't mean that we don't want the same things of protecting our neighbors, protecting our communities. And so, if either of you want to also talk about dreaming, that's a huge component of what's next. We have set up sort of a strategy, but we can't just linger there. There's another step. So you have to have visionaries. Now, again, we're not looking for permission. No one needs permission. So choose your lane, and maybe that lane will change. But we need visionaries and people who can take it to another level as well.
Yep.
Okay, one last question here in the Q&A box. It's kind of interesting. What role is the Minnesota National Guard playing today? Do you expect the same of them tomorrow? So we do know that the National Guard has been called out, but what are they doing?
What I heard, maybe you guys know more, is that they did go to the Whipple building and they calmed things down. And this is, when we're talking about what I don't see that a state or county officer or even a National Guard is likely to go up and shoot ICE officers if they're taking somebody away. That people but they can calm things down, and they I think I would trust them more. And they're wearing fluorescent jackets, and they're not masked, is what I've heard. So they're, as your people trying to protect you should be, right, versus agents who are trying to whisk you away. So I think
Right.
it's better. Yeah,
I think they were passing out donuts, but again, seems like a distraction to me.
Okay, we've got one more person with their hand up. Jeffrey, if you'll unmute, and as soon as our director gives you a shot. And
Hello.
hello, thank you.
First, I'd like to say thank you all for hosting this. I very much appreciate this. I've learned a lot.
You're
So
welcome.
a little bit of context. I am part of an organization that provides financial relief to tenants that are on the verge of eviction, and we have helped undocumented immigrants before. I wanted to ask how, because a lot of people are shuttered behind their doors, and they're worried about going outside or bringing extra exposure to themselves. How are people in these mutual aid networks identifying individuals in need?
Yeah, so a lot of the chats are admin only that they are able to write. So you would contact an admin and then they would put out the call for crowdfunding. So no one is really being identified specifically. The admins are safe people that are vetted and the information goes through them. And then more people are vetted in terms of how they're receiving the funds or groceries or whatever it is to take it to the next level. So it's really about knowing your people and keeping each other safe. I can't harp on that enough. It's really just, do you trust people and finding those trusted individuals that can connect everyone together.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, yeah, M has been doing quite a bit of that sport, and I don't know all the answers, Jeffrey, to your question, but like at our school, as I was mentioning, we know people know each
Right.
other. So the
Right.
school has said, if you need help, can you let us know? And the students aren't being able to go to school because
Right.
they're camped outside the schools at times to grab the parents. Like you probably saw the 5-year-old who was used as bait. A 5-year-old uses bait. I'll repeat that
Yes,
in
Liam
America.
Ramos.
So, but they've contacted the schools, and so that's the three families that I know are specifically through that. But it's communities know each other. These folks are part of our communities. You know, immigrants have been part of the fabric of America from the beginning, and no one, unless you're Native American, no one was here.
Or you were brought here as a slave.
Right.
Those are the only, everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's different ways, but yeah, thanks for that question.
Okay, well, we're just about out of the allotted time. Let me take each of you in turn and take a minute to give us some closing thoughts, whatever's on your mind. Andor, let's start with you.
Yeah, we're winning. That's my biggest thought. Like,
I like that.
every single time they gas us, every single time they beat us, single time they kill us, they're exposing themselves to the world. They're showing the world the nature of who they are. And we are a powerful, nonviolent resistance of an oppressive regime, and we are winning. We are winning. And it's insane. It's so crazy. And I cannot tell you how proud I am to be part of this city and part of this movement. I'm going to be proud to tell someday. I'm going to tell my kids the stories of what's happening out on the streets. It's, you know, they're in the city too. I can't share too much yet, but we're winning this thing.
Well, on behalf of all of us outside of Minnesota who are watching, I just want to thank you for what you've been doing. It has been incredible. M, closing thought?
Yeah, I would say you prepare yourself. You know, you gotta, if you're gonna be out there, make sure you have a respirator mask. But also know that just because there is gas doesn't mean they're gassing themselves. So some of it is really smoke and mirrors. So just be careful of the story that they're trying to tell. But we save us. Community is the most important. And the last thing that I want to say is I've been working a lot about managing burnout. If you need to tap out, then tap in when you have the capacity. Again, it is imperative. If you are too burnt out and you are doing work, and then you essentially can harm your neighbors by being burnt out. So tap out, let somebody else tap in and take your place. And then when you're ready, you can come back in.
Excellent advice. Muad'Dib, closing thoughts. And let me just say thank you again for all your help in putting this together. I really appreciate it. And it's great to see you again. How long has it been? 20 years or something?
It's been a bit here, Paul. So
yeah.
It's been a bit, but it's you know, that's one of the good things about Meta is we do have Facebook, and for some things it's good. So as bad as it is overall, it's good for some things. I think my co-panelists have really said most of the things I want to say quite eloquently. I think M's comments about mutual aid and support, and you know, tapping out when you need to is important. Andor is quite right that we are winning, and that's why Trump kept pouring troops. And then he saw that it doesn't look too good when you keep killing, you know, decent, upright, good people in the streets. And I think that's had a blowback. I think maybe I'll leave with this image today that I don't know if you guys saw it. It was the owner of a bookstore, and he didn't know the picture was being taken, but he's walking. Minneapolis has an incredible number of bookstores still, like on like every few blocks, and he's the owner of a bookstore, and he's walking out of a gas cloud. Like there's just all this, tear gas and all around him. And apparently, the picture hit the press, and his bookstore is taken off. Like people are from internationally, they're calling in and getting his books. So I think we are the epicenter right now. We won't continue to be, but we have an amazing history. And prepare yourself. Get to know your community members.
Yes.
For too often we
Yes.
drive places and it becomes a commuter culture. Well, our kind of commuter culture is good right now, but the
Yeah.
kind of commuter culture where you don't know your neighbors is not optimal. So start to get to know people, because in California, earthquakes may matter, and earthquakes will happen, and you may want just for that to know your immediate neighbors. So power on. I don't know where this country is going. None of us know, but none of us can do everything, but each of us has to do what we can.
Yeah.
That is what the country was founded on. That's where we got to go.
Also, big shout out to Chicago and LA and Portland, and the ones who've been hit before we ever were, who have their own body counts, because they've been mentoring us and helping us rise up. And pretty soon that'll be us trying to help you guys. Maybe tonight is one of those things.
Okay, thanks again to each and every one of you, and the tens of thousands of other activists in Minneapolis who are fighting on our behalf, because it is coming for us. So thank you all for tuning in and watching tonight. A really good turnout tonight. Special thanks to David Simon for operating the controls so well behind the scenes for me again. Andor, Muad'Dib, and Em, thank you once again, and we'll see you all next month. Thanks for tuning in.